Jack Reaper Thompson steps off the transport shuttle and into Orion's Bane, a galactic penal station unlike any other. The air is cold and heavy, and the atmosphere feels tense, filled with a sense of danger. This isn't just a place where prisoners serve time, it's where they fight to survive. Inmates here face two choices: battle or perish. The moment Jack enters, he knows that every move he makes could be the difference between life and death. He's the only human among countless alien species, and the threat is immediate. The guards, insectoid creatures, are just as dangerous as the prisoners they watch over, showing no mercy or compassion. Jack quickly understands the hierarchy that governs the prison, with a brutal alien warlord named Growz at the top. Growz and his gang rule the station through fear, using violence to maintain their control. Every inmate knows that crossing them means certain death. As Jack surveys his new reality, he remains calm and collected. He doesn't react to the hostile glares or the whispered threats around him. Instead, he starts observing everything: the layout of the prison, the guards' routines, and the interactions between inmates. Patience is key in a place like this, and Jack knows he'll need to be smart if he wants to survive. For now, Jack chooses not to engage. He's here to survive, not to make enemies just yet. But the tension is thick, and the inevitable confrontation with Growz and his gang is looming. Jack's calm demeanor hides a strategic mind. Below the surface, he's already planning his next move. From the moment Jack steps into the main yard of Orion's Bane, the tension around him rises. The prisoners, a mix of different alien species, eye him with suspicion. Jack stands out, being the only human, and it doesn't take long before trouble finds him. The insectoid guards patrol the area with cold, detached efficiency. They don't intervene in the conflicts between inmates. They simply watch, waiting to pick up the pieces once the violence plays out. Jack barely gets a chance to settle into his surroundings when he meets Growz, the alien warlord who rules the prison with an iron fist. Growz towers over most of the other prisoners. His hulking forms a symbol of his dominance. His gang surrounds him, a constant reminder of the power he holds over the other inmates. Growz wastes no time establishing his dominance over Jack, making it clear that humans, in his eyes, are weak and insignificant. The threats come quickly, but Jack doesn't react. He remains composed, his expression unreadable, even as Growz tries to provoke him. The other inmates watch closely. Some expect Jack to crumble under the pressure, while others are curious about how he will respond. But Jack knows better than to give them what they want. He's careful not to show fear or anger. Instead, he silently observes, learning everything he can about the prison's dynamics. He watches the guards as they patrol, notices how the gang members interact with each other, and begins to understand the unspoken rules that govern this brutal place. Despite the daily threats and intimidation from Growz and his gang, Jack chooses not to engage in any confrontation for now. He knows that in this environment, reacting too soon could be a fatal mistake. His calm demeanor starts to confuse his enemies. Growz's gang is used to fear and submission, but Jack doesn't give them either. This creates a subtle shift in the prison's power balance, even if no one realizes it yet. Jack's quiet defiance sends a message. He may be new, but he's not weak. And while the other inmates continue with their daily routines of survival, Jack is already planning his next move. He won't remain passive for long, but when he does act, it will be on his terms, not theirs. Life inside Orion's Bane is brutal, and every day feels like a test of survival. The prison is a hostile world where violence is constant and the strong prey on the weak. Jack, however, keeps his distance, observing everything with a sharp eye. The inmates, divided into different alien species, form their own groups, each trying to survive in the harsh conditions. Growz's gang, the most feared of them all, continues to rule through intimidation and violence, targeting those who don't fall in line. Jack is no exception. Every day, Growz's lackeys try to push Jack into reacting. They taunt him, shove him around, and even deny him access to basic necessities like food and clean water. But Jack never bites back. He stays calm, his mind working through every scenario, analysing the prison's layout, its weaknesses, and the routine of the guards. Despite the daily torment, Jack refuses to let them break him. He knows that reacting with violence too soon would be reckless. Instead, he focuses on gathering information quietly and carefully. It's during this time that Jack meets Zix, a fellow inmate who has also been watching the way the prison operates. Zix is a resourceful and cunning character, and though he's been surviving on the edges, he's also grown tired of Growz's reign of terror. Zix becomes an unlikely ally, offering Jack valuable insight into the prison's power structure. Through Zix, Jack learns more about the inner workings of Growz's gang. He discovers that while they appear united, cracks are beginning to show. Growz's control isn't as solid as it seems, and some of his lieutenants are growing restless, eager to take more power for themselves. Jack listens carefully, filing away every piece of information for later use. He doesn't rush his plan, knowing that patience will be his greatest asset in this deadly game. Meanwhile, the other inmates are starting to notice Jack's calm resilience. He doesn't beg for mercy or scramble for survival like so many others, and that earns him a quiet respect, even if no one openly acknowledges it. Jack's restraint only makes him more of a mystery to the other prisoners. Why hasn't he fought back? What is he waiting for? In this harsh environment, Jack's strategy is simple. Bide his time, gather information, and strike when the moment is right. He's not looking for small victories. He's planning something bigger. And as the days pass, it becomes clear that Jack isn't just surviving. He's positioning himself for something far more dangerous. He may look like he's keeping his head down, but in reality, Jack is preparing for the battle to come. The tension inside Orion's Bane has been simmering for days. Jack has been patient, enduring the daily harassment from Growz's gang without ever striking back. But he knows that sooner or later, the time will come when he has to make a move. That moment arrives one day in the prison yard. As the inmates gather for their limited time outside, the air feels thick with anticipation. Everyone is watching Jack, waiting to see how long he can stay quiet under the constant pressure. Jack chooses this moment carefully. As one of Growz's lackeys struts around the yard, trying to provoke him, Jack makes his move. It's a subtle act at first. He casually sticks out his foot, tripping the alien tub as he walks by. The fall is quick, but the impact sends a clear message. The other inmates pause, their eyes shifting to Jack, wondering if this is the moment where things finally explode. The lackey, furious and embarrassed, scrambles to his feet, ready for a fight. But Jack remains calm, standing his ground. There's no fear in his eyes, no hesitation in his movements. It's as if Jack had been waiting for this exact moment. What follows is a brief but intense confrontation. The lackey charges at Jack, but Jack doesn't fight with brute force. He moves with precision, dodging the attack and using his enemy's momentum against him. In just a few swift moves, Jack disarms and disables his opponent, leaving him on the ground, humiliated. The entire yard falls silent. Jack didn't just win the fight. He outsmarted his opponent, proving that he's not just another helpless prisoner. The other inmates begin to see him in a new light. He's no longer the quiet human who avoids conflict. He's someone who can fight and win when he chooses to. But Jack knows that this small victory is just the beginning. He didn't take down Growz himself, but this confrontation sends a powerful message to the rest of the prison. Jack isn't afraid to stand up for himself, and he's more than capable of defending his position. More importantly, Jack now understands the prison's dynamics even better. Growz's gang is strong, but they rely on fear to maintain control. By showing that he isn't intimidated, Jack has already begun to weaken their grip on the prison. This confrontation marks a turning point. Jack is no longer just an observer, he's a player in the game. And while the other inmates don't fully understand his plan yet, they can sense that something is shifting. Jack isn't just here to survive, he's here to change the balance of power. With Jack's first confrontation behind him, the dynamics inside Orion's Bane start to shift. His calm, calculated approach to survival has earned him the respect of many of the other prisoners, especially those who have suffered under Growz's brutal regime. Jack knows that, while winning small fights is important, he can't take down Growz alone. He needs allies, and in a place like this, finding the right people to trust is crucial. Slowly, Jack begins reaching out to other inmates. His first and most reliable ally remains Zix, the cunning prisoner who first shared valuable information with him. Zix has lived in the shadows of the prison for a long time, always careful not to draw too much attention. But now, with Jack making moves against Growz's gang, Zix sees an opportunity to change the balance of power. Together, they begin to plan. It's not just about brute force, it's about strategy and timing. Jack knows that to weaken Growz, they'll need to hit him where it hurts. His control over the prison's resources and his ability to communicate with his lieutenants. Jack and Zix quietly gather a small group of like-minded prisoners who are tired of living in fear. These aren't the strongest inmates physically, but they are clever, resourceful, and most importantly, loyal. Jack starts organizing small acts of sabotage. His team begins by disrupting the supply routes Growz relies on to maintain his dominance. Food, weapons, and information no longer flow smoothly through the prison. The once tight grip that Growz's gang had over everything starts to loosen. The impact is subtle at first, but it's enough to create confusion and paranoia within Growz's ranks. His lieutenants, once confident in their power, begin to second-guess each other. They don't know who's responsible for the disruptions, but they sense that something is wrong. Jack watches this unfold carefully, never revealing too much, but always staying one step ahead. As Jack's sabotage efforts continue, the cracks within Growz's control grow wider. His gang, once united by fear and violence, starts to fracture. Some members question their loyalty, while others simply grow frustrated by the constant setbacks. Jack knows that this is exactly what he needs. Disunity within Growz's gang will make them vulnerable when the time comes for a bigger strike. Through all of this, Jack remains in the background, never pushing himself forward too much, but always making sure his presence is felt. The other inmates, those who have long suffered under Growz's tyranny, begin to see Jack as a symbol of hope. They don't fully understand his plan, but they trust that he's working towards something better. And for the first time in a long while, there's a sense that Growz's iron grip on the prison might not last forever. Jack isn't just fighting for himself anymore. He's building something bigger, a movement to overthrow the violent regime that has ruled Orion's Bane for too long. And though the road ahead is still dangerous, Jack knows that with the right strategy and the right allies, even Growz can be taken down. The prison's tension has reached a boiling point. Jack's sabotage has done more than just disrupt Growz's control. It's fractured his gang, leaving them paranoid and on edge. Growz knows he's losing his grip, and he's not about to let it slip away without a fight. Desperate to reassert his dominance, Growz decides to take matters into his own hands. He plans an ambush, aiming to finally eliminate the one prisoner who's been causing him so much trouble, Jack. Jack, of course, is prepared. His careful observations and strategic planning haven't just weakened Growz, they've also given him an edge when it comes to anticipating the warlord's next move. When Growz arranges for the ambush in the maintenance tunnels, Jack and his small group of allies are ready. Zix, always 2 steps ahead when it comes to gathering information, warns Jack about the plan just in time. The maintenance tunnels are dark and narrow, the perfect place for an ambush. Growz and his gang position themselves, ready to strike, thinking they've caught Jack off guard. But Jack has turned the tables. Instead of walking into a trap, Jack and his team lay their own. They know the tunnels better than Growz realizes, and Jack uses the confined space to his advantage. The battle that erupts is fierce, but it's not chaos. Jack's moves are calculated, his strikes precise. His team fights with coordinated precision, using their knowledge of the prison's layout to outmaneuver Growz's gang. Growz, blinded by rage and desperation, underestimates Jack's strength and intelligence. The fight between them is brutal. Blows are exchanged, and for a moment it seems like Growz's sheer size and brute strength might win out. But Jack isn't fighting on strength alone, he's using strategy. He studied Growz, learned his weaknesses, and knows how to exploit them. In the end, it's not Jack's fists that win the battle, but his mind. He maneuvers Growz into a vulnerable position and delivers a final decisive blow that brings the alien warlord crashing down. As Growz falls, the atmosphere shifts. The once feared ruler of Orion's Bane is defeated, lying in the dust of the tunnels. His gang, already divided and confused, crumbles without their leader's iron fist, holding them together. The other inmates, many of whom have long lived in fear of Growz, begin to realize that the warlord's reign is over. Jack, bloody but standing tall, surveys the scene. The battle is over, but the war for Orion's Bane has only just begun. Jack knows that defeating Growz was just one part of the plan. Now, with the power vacuum left by Growz's fall, Jack has the chance to reshape the prison to create a new order based on cooperation rather than fear and violence. But he also knows that with power comes responsibility, and the path ahead won't be easy. With Growz defeated, the power structure inside Orion's Bane begins to shift almost immediately. For years, the prison had been ruled by fear and violence, with Growz's gang keeping a tight grip on the inmates through intimidation. But now, that grip has been broken. Word spreads quickly across the prison. Growz is gone, and the old order has collapsed. The inmates are left wondering what will come next. Jack knows that this is a critical moment. With the chaos and uncertainty following Growz's defeat, there's a risk that the prison could descend into even more violence. The other gangs and factions could rush in to fill the power vacuum, leading to more bloodshed and chaos. But Jack has no intention of letting that happen. He steps forward, not as another warlord, but as someone who wants to bring order to the prison, a different kind of order. Instead of ruling with fear, Jack proposes something new. He starts by addressing the prisoners directly, making it clear that the days of violence and oppression need to end. His calm and firm leadership earns him respect, even from those who were initially skeptical of him. Jack knows that the prison can't continue to operate under the same brutal system. It's time for a change. Jack's first move is to establish a council, a group of representatives from different inmate factions. He makes it clear that everyone, regardless of their background or species, will have a voice. The council's role is to help keep the peace, settle disputes, and ensure that resources are distributed fairly. This is a major shift for Orion's Bane, where survival has always been about who can take the most by force. Jack's approach is about cooperation, and it begins to resonate with the prisoners. At first, there's hesitation. Many of the inmates have only ever known life under a harsh regime, and trusting in this new system feels risky. But as the days pass, something remarkable happens. Conflicts that would have once ended in violence are now being resolved through the council. Prisoners who were once enemies start working together, even if cautiously. The prison, once a place of endless fear and brutality, begins to shift toward something resembling order. Jack doesn't pretend that everything will be perfect. He knows that Orion's Bane is still a dangerous place, and the road ahead will be difficult. But by dismantling the old system of oppression and replacing it with one of fairness and cooperation, Jack has given the prisoners something they haven't had in a long time: hope. As the new leadership structure takes hold, the atmosphere in the prison changes. It's no longer about survival at any cost. It's about finding a way to live, even in the harshest of environments. And though Jack knows that he'll still face challenges from those who prefer the old ways of violence, he's prepared to meet those challenges head-on. He's not just a survivor, he's a leader. And under his guidance, Orion's Bane might finally become something more than just a brutal prison. It might become a place where the inmates can begin to rebuild their lives. With the old order shattered and a new system in place, Orion's Bane is no longer the brutal, fear-driven prison it once was. The changes Jack has brought are profound, and while the transition hasn't been easy, the results are undeniable. The prisoners, many of whom had long been ruled by violence and oppression, now have a voice. They can resolve disputes through dialogue instead of bloodshed, and for the first time in years, there's a sense of cautious hope within the prison's cold metallic walls. Jack's leadership has become a symbol of this new beginning. He never sought power for the sake of power. Instead, he used his intelligence and resilience to create a system that works for everyone, not just the strong. His calm yet decisive approach has inspired the other inmates, who now look to him for guidance. The council he formed is functioning, and while it's still far from perfect, it represents something much larger, a chance for fairness and cooperation in a place where those values were once unheard of. But Jack knows that this is just the beginning. Orion's Bane is still a dangerous place, and the road ahead will be filled with challenges. There are still prisoners who long for the old ways, who see Jack's leadership as weakness, and who might try to seize power for themselves. Jack understands that maintaining order will require constant vigilance, and that true change takes time. Yet, even with these challenges, Jack remains optimistic. He's given the inmates something they've never had before: a glimpse of a better future. Slowly but surely, the prison is transforming. The oppressive atmosphere that once defined Orion's Bane is lifting, replaced by a cautious but growing sense of trust among the prisoners. Jack's journey has been long and difficult, but his actions have sparked something powerful: the belief that even in the darkest places, change is possible. As the story comes to a close, Jack reflects on how far he's come, from the human newcomer who faced hostility from all sides to the leader who now stands at the center of a transformed prison. He knows that his work is far from over, but for now, he allows himself a moment to appreciate what he's accomplished. Orion's Bane will never be the same, and Jack, the man who once entered as just another prisoner, is now the one guiding it toward a new and uncertain future. A future filled with both danger and possibility, but also with hope.